This morning, a community in shock in Buffalo, New York.
When I first saw him shooting, he shot a woman, he shot a deacon, he shot another woman, and then he went in the store and started shooting again.
10 people shot dead and live streamed the attack that is now being investigated as a hate crime.
This was pure evil. It was straight up racially motivated hate crime from somebody outside of our community.
It was supposed to be a normal working day for 55-year-old Aaron Salder, who, after retiring as a police officer, had gotten a job as a security guard at Tops Supermarket in Buffalo, New York. Everything seemed in order until 2:30 p.m., when he heard several gunshot sounds coming from the parking lot and saw a man carrying an assault rifle and heading towards the store. Aaron instinctively drew out his gun, ready to protect everyone inside the supermarket. But what happened next was something out of a horrible nightmare. Peyton Gendron lived in Conklin, New York with his parents, Paul and Pamela, who were both civil engineers, and his 2 younger brothers. The family seemed like a tight-knit suburban family that often wore matching outfits, playing laser tag together, enjoyed amusement park vacations, went to the beach and restaurants together, and opened presents on Christmas morning. Peyton attended Susquehanna High School, where he was known as a quiet, studious boy who got good grades but seemed out of place. He especially excelled in sciences, once even earning top marks in a state chemistry competition. While mostly quiet, Peyton had some really extremist views on politics and would sometimes do some really weird stuff just to get his classmates' attention. One time in 2020, after the COVID-19 lockdown, he wore a full hazmat suit to school for an entire week. This did not go down well with other students who found him awkward and nerdy. Then, during a political class exercise, when the students were told to create their own countries with the government of their choice, Peyton chose a totalitarian government, which his classmates described as Hitler-esque. On June 8, 2021, when Peyton was in his senior year in high school, he made a very concerning remark on what should have been seen as a major red flag. Apparently, a teacher had asked him about his plans after graduation, and he replied, "I want to murder and commit suicide." With the number of such cases going on in the country, the school did not take this lightly, and they immediately called the police. Peyton told them that he was only joking and that he said that to get out of class. But later, in his online journal, he wrote that he was actually not joking and that he planned to do what he had said. Still, a psychiatric evaluation found him not to be a threat, and he was released and allowed to continue with his life. That was a horrible mistake. On Saturday, May 14, 2022, at around 2:30 p.m., a man wearing body armor and a military helmet and carrying a modified assault rifle and head-mounted camera that was live streaming on Twitch arrived at the Tops Supermarket in Buffalo, New York. In the car, he had a hunting rifle with racial slurs and names of white supremacist mass murderers written all over it. As he was heading to the store, he was recorded on his live stream saying, "Just gotta go for it." He fired at 4 people in the parking lot and killed 3 of them. Then he entered the store and was confronted by Aaron, who fired several times at him. But his bullets could not go through because of the body armor. The gunman returned fire and killed Aaron. With no one else to stand in his way, the maniac started firing randomly at the people inside the store, aiming specifically for the African Americans. He hit 8 people, instantly killing 6. At one point, the shooter aimed his gun at a white person who was behind a checkout counter, but did not pull the trigger. Instead, he apologized to him and left to search for more black people to kill. Many of the employees and customers had hidden in the store's break room and barricaded the door with a large desk, while other customers were hidden by the employees in the milk cooler. The gunman reportedly fired several times through the coolers, but the bullets were stopped by the milk cartons. At 2:36, the gunman went to the front of the building and aimed the gun at his neck, intending to take his life. But the patrol officers who were already at the scene managed to convince him to drop the weapon, and he was soon taken into custody. A total of 13 people were shot during this horrifying incident, 11 of whom were black, while 2 were white. 10 of the black victims sadly died.
This morning, a community in shock in Buffalo, New York.
When I first saw him shooting, he shot a woman, he shot a deacon, he shot another woman, and then he went in the store and started shooting again.
10 people dead and 3 more injured after a gunman opened fire at a Tops-friendly supermarket in a predominantly black neighborhood.
This is the worst nightmare that any community can face.
The crime shook the entire country, with everyone, including the president, asking why anyone would do such an evil thing. What did these innocent people ever do to him? The people he killed were well known and loved in the community and did not deserve such a horrible ending. Aaron Souder was declared a hero because he did everything he could to stop the shooter. Despite having retired from the police force, he was given full police officer line of duty death honors. Geraldine Talley was a mom of 2 and had stopped by the store to pick up some food for dinner. Before the gunfire started, she had reportedly asked her fiancé to go to another aisle to get something off of one of the shelves. That was the last time her fiancé saw her alive. 72-year-old Catherine Massey was also in the supermarket that Saturday doing her grocery shopping as she usually did. Her brother was supposed to pick her up after she finished running her errands, but she never came out of the store alive. Catherine was a civil rights and education advocate who did everything she could to uplift the Buffalo Black community. Pearlie Young was a 77-year-old Buffalo resident who had spent 25 years of her life feeding the needy in the community. She had gone to lunch with her sister-in-law on Saturday and was dropped off at the grocery store where her son was supposed to pick her up. 65-year-old Celestine Chaney was a loving mother and grandmother of 6 who had gone to the supermarket with her sister to buy strawberries for shortcake. When the gunshots started, the 2 started running for safety, but unfortunately, she was struck and killed. At 32 years old, Roberta Drury had moved to Buffalo from Syracuse, New York, to look after her older brother who had just had a bone marrow transplant. That Saturday, she went to the store to get dinner, but she didn't come out alive. Andre McNeil, 53, was in town visiting relatives, and he decided to get a surprise birthday cake for his grandson. Sadly, he never came out with the cake. Also in the store was 86-year-old Ruth Whitfield, who was a mother of a former Buffalo Fire Commissioner. She had just visited her husband in a nursing home and had decided to stop by the store to get something to eat. Hayward Patterson was a church deacon who would give people rides to and from the supermarket and help them carry their groceries. He was fatally shot while helping someone in the parking lot. Margus Morrison, a father of 3, was an active bus aide for Buffalo schools. He was also killed while running some errands at the store.
It was pure evil. It was straight up racially motivated hate crime from somebody outside of our community.
The shooter was identified as 18-year-old Peyton Gendon, and he had driven 200 miles from his hometown to kill innocent people that he didn't even know. People that had nothing to do with him, but he hated anyway. Why would he do such a thing? The truth was even more disturbing. Peyton wrote in his manifesto that it all started out of extreme boredom during the early days of the COVID-19 lockdown. Apparently, he had a lot of time on his hands, and so he found himself on the dark side of the internet, reading about conspiracy theories about how white people were apparently becoming extinct and that black people were somehow to blame because of immigration and low white birth rates. As crazy as this might sound, Peyton actually believed it, and he started thinking that it was his duty as a white supremacist to save his race from extinction. And in his sick, twisted mind, he believed that the only way to do that was to kill as many African Americans as possible. In December 2021, Peyton started buying the weapons that he would use in his attack. He already had a rifle that his dad had bought him for Christmas in 2020, so he added another rifle and a shotgun. He bought both weapons legally and then modified the rifle to accept about 30 rounds of magazines. Peyton said in his manifesto that he targeted Buffalo because it was the city with the most black residents that was closest to his home. He then looked for an area with the highest percentage of African Americans. He considered attacking a church or an elementary school, but ultimately chose Tops Supermarket because it served as a meeting place for many shoppers in the neighborhood, who were mostly African Americans. He started scouting the place and referred to Google's popular times graph to know which day and time was the busiest to carry out his attack. On March 8th, he drove over to Buffalo and visited the Tops Market 3 times, 12 p.m., 2 p.m., and 4 p.m. He noted everything that was going on inside the store, including the number of Black and white people that visited the market. He even drew a map of inside the store. During his 4 p.m. visit, he was actually approached by an armed security guard who asked him what he was doing in and out of the store. He told the guard that he was collecting census data, but would later note in his diary, "In hindsight, that was a close call. I'm going to have to kill that security guard at Tops. I hope he doesn't kill me, or even harm me instantly." He wrote in his manifesto that he initially planned his attack for March 15th, but then delayed it several times, one time because he had gotten infected with COVID. On the day before the actual attack, he wrote on Discord, "I can't believe I'm actually going through with this. Never in my life would I think that I would be a killer. I keep going back and forth from, this is actually insane, to, this is the only logical thing to do." Shortly before the attack, he posted hundreds of pages of writings to online discussion groups where he details his plans for the assault and his racist motivation. He then opened a private invite-only server on Twitch and invited a few people to watch the massacre live. While the video was removed within 2 minutes, screenshots of it and some of the footage can still be found out there on the internet. Payton is currently facing first-degree murder charges and other hate crime charges, which could carry a life sentence or the death penalty. She shows her sister's gory body strewn on the grass.
As people who do this for a living, it's very disturbing to us because the callous nature of her actions.
She knows she killed her own sister.
This is 18-year-old Abdulia Sanchez during her first preliminary hearing in court by video. She appears completely emotionless as the judge reads out the charges against her.
Do you understand the charges?
A little bit.
Do you have the funds to hire your own attorney?
No, I don't.
I'm going to appoint the public defender.
This was only a few days after an incident that shook the entire nation and blew up the internet. But Abdulia didn't seem to care at all, even when it was her actions that had caused her own sister's death. Abdulia Sanchez lived in Stockton, California, with her parents, Gloria and Nicandro Sanchez, and 3 siblings, Jacqueline, Evelyn, and Nicandro Jr. Growing up, Abdulia went through some pretty traumatic situations. She was abused at the age of 11, and then when she was 13, she was abducted, tortured, and even trafficked. During that time, she was forced to abuse alcohol and controlled substances, which eventually led her to becoming completely dependent on them. Many believe that it is these harrowing experiences that contributed to what happened on July 21st, 2017.
She knows she do something wrong because she knows. And that's what I feel. She feel bad, but she self-killed her own sister.
When this incident happened, Abdulia was 18 years old and had just graduated from high school after spending 2 years in Child Protective Services, while her sister Jacqueline was 14 years old and had just finished 10th grade. Those who knew Jacqueline described her as brave and smart, with a bright future ahead of her. She wanted to travel the world and become an actor and a singer. And like many girls her age, Jacqueline was super into social media, especially Instagram, which is where she met her 14-year-old friend, Manuela Seja. The two had been dating for about 7 months when this tragic incident happened. That Friday evening, Abdulia and Jacqueline drove from Stockton to Fresno to pick up Manuela and bring her back to the Sanchez house. Jacqueline was turning 15 and she was super excited about her quinceañera party, which was to take place over the weekend. Sadly, that day never came for her. At around 6:40 p.m., Abdulia was driving on the highway in Los Banos, California, while live streaming on Instagram. The video footage shows her driving while rapping along with the music in her car. In the back seat, Jacqueline and Manuela are seated next to each other, completely unaware of what was just about to happen. At one point, Abdulia took her hands off the steering wheel, causing the car to veer off the road. But then when she tried to correct it, it swerved across lanes, crashing through a barbed wire fence and overturning into a field. You can hear screaming and the sounds of metal crushing as Jacqueline and Manuela, who had not been wearing their seatbelts, are thrown out of the overturning car. Seconds later, you hear Abdulia calling Jacqueline's name before coming into view and talking into the camera. Then she does something totally horrifying. She shows her sister's gory body strewn on the grass. Who does that?
I killed my sister, okay? I know I'm going to jail for life, alright? I understand that. This is the last thing I wanted to happen, okay? Alright? I don't care though, I'ma hold it down.
The disturbing footage ends with Abdulia kneeling next to her sister's dead body and saying, "I'm f***ing sorry, baby. I didn't mean to kill you, sweetie." When the emergency services arrived at the scene, they found Jacqueline dead with a nasty cut on her head. Manuela had major leg injuries, while Abdulia complained of having pain in her chest and right knee. According to the authorities, Abdulia was screaming hysterically and trying to fight the officers when they tried to put her in an ambulance, so they detained her on suspicion of driving under the influence. During the investigation, authorities learned that Abdulia had posted another recording on her Instagram story, which showed her driving recklessly moments before the crash. In the footage, Abdulia almost hits a minivan that was crossing in front of her and Jacqueline, who was at the time seated on the front passenger seat, and could be seen moving her hands dramatically and yelling, "You're going to kill me." And sadly, that's exactly what happened. The footage received over 700,000 views, with one of Abdulia's followers saving it and uploading it on Facebook, where it then got picked up by an international media company and uploaded to other sites like Twitter and LiveLeak.
The video is very disturbing, both to us, as people who do this for a living. It's very disturbing to us because the callous nature of her actions, both leading up to this tragedy and in the immediate aftermath.
Abdulia and Jacqueline's 12-year-old sister, Evelyn, was the first one in the Sanchez family to watch the horrifying video and see her sister's lifeless body. As you can imagine, she was completely traumatized, and she went to her parents crying and told them about what had happened. The parents then called the authorities and confirmed what they had already feared. Jacqueline was dead.
Nos cuenta que algo había pasado grave porque dijo chocaron. Entonces empezó a llorar y dije, no, pues murió una de ellas.
The family was even more heartbroken to learn that Abdulia was being held responsible for her sister's death. But despite their grief of losing Jacqueline, they defended Abdulia, saying that it was an accident and that there was nothing she could have done.
And it's honestly not her fault because the tire blew out and it's not her fault. Like, there's nothing she could have done.
Manuela, who was recovering from her leg injury and devastated to lose Jacqueline, said that she did not blame Abdulia for what happened and that social media caused everything.
Honestly, I'm not mad at anybody. And I don't blame anybody. It's all affected by social media. That's what life is now, and it's gonna advance more and more. That's what it's all gonna be about.
Still, the authorities found that Abdulia's blood alcohol content was above the legal limit, and there were traces of illegal substances in her system. She was charged with vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated, DUI, and child endangerment. She pleaded not guilty to the charges, with her lawyer saying that although Abdulia had admitted in the video to killing her sister, it was unclear whether a crime had actually been committed. He said that Abdulia felt terrible about what had happened and that she was absolutely broken apart. He went on to talk about Abdulia's childhood, saying that no one had a right to judge her because they had no idea what she had been through.
think that it's very unfortunate that so many people would rush to judge Ms. Sanchez in this case based on a few minutes of a video clip when she's a very young 18-year-old woman. They've never walked a single step in her shoes. They don't know how she's been a foster child. They don't know that she's been the victim of human sex trafficking.
But before the case could go to trial, Abdulia changed her plea to no contest, saying in a phone interview with a reporter that she didn't realize that the video made her look like a monster. She described her sister as her best friend, saying that she was really sad that she was dead. She then went on to explain why she took the horrific video, saying, "I made that video because I knew I had more than 5,000 followers. It was the only way my sister would get a decent burial. I would never expose my sister like that. I anticipated the public donating money because my family isn't rich." Like, seriously? That's messed up. During her sentencing hearing, Abdulia broke down in tears when the video was played in court, with the prosecution saying that the words that she used in the video showed that she didn't care that she'd killed her sister. However, her lawyer argued that Abdulia's words were just a cry for help, and that she didn't really mean it. Later, when Abdulia was given a chance to speak, she read an emotional letter expressing her remorse, saying that while she didn't want to go to prison, she deserved the punishment she would receive.
She didn't deserve to die the way she did, and it shouldn't have been me.
She also apologized to their parents, saying that she was tired of hurting the people she loved. Despite her parents and defense lawyer requesting that she be given probation, Abdulia was sentenced to 6 years and 4 months in prison. But the story does not end here. In September 2019, after only serving a little over 2 years of her sentence, Abdulia was released early on parole after apparently earning credit for good behavior and attending rehabilitation programs. But apparently prison did not help her in any way, because barely a month later she was arrested again. Forget this, leading the police in a car chase.
Stockton police say they tried to pull her over this morning for driving with expired registration, but she took off, running 2 stop signs, a red light, and leading police on a chase. She drove off the road near the I-5 on-ramp at March Lane.
A male passenger jumped out and ran up onto the freeway.
Police say they found this loaded gun in the car.
So what she did here in Stockton this morning is alarming because she was just released from prison, is on parole, and is already engaging in criminal activities.
Abdulia ended up being charged with driving with a revoked license, violating parole, and carrying a loaded firearm. When she appeared in court, she seemed like a totally different person from the crying teen who had begged for forgiveness 2 years earlier. She now had her sister's name tattooed on her neck and had this detached look that showed she didn't really care what happened to her. Interesting to note is that even with this second brush with the law, Abdulia's dad still supported her, showing up in all her hearings saying that his daughter needed help more than prison. He claimed that Abdulia had been diagnosed with bipolar and needed treatment.
I'm doing this to make a promise to my son. This is not what's up. This is what I told him. As long as I'm out here, you got a cheat code. You will never have to do wrong for nothing. You know what, CJ? I wish you could come. Come get famous, bro. Oh, look, the police right there.
This man is being accused of brutally killing his girlfriend while live streaming on Facebook. According to the police, he placed his phone on the dashboard of his car and recorded himself assaulting his girlfriend as more than 200 people watched in horror.
He choked her, he beat her, and he stabbed her. And then from there, he tried to set the car on fire.
The gruesome video was later taken down and reported to the police, but by the time the police got to the scene, the woman was already dead. This is the disturbing case of the man who killed his girlfriend on Facebook Live. Janice Mary David was born on November 3, 1987. She was originally from Port Allen, but later moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is where she was living when this tragic incident happened. Janice worked at Domino's Pizza, and those who knew her described her as kind and caring and a person who loved her family and was always there to help those who needed her. Unfortunately, Janice was also struggling with substance addiction, but according to her friends, she was taking steps to get help.
We both just took her to go sign up for a class at her parole and probation officer. It ain't been 2 weeks since we did this. She was supposed to be in class this week. Never made it.
The peer support specialist who had worked with Janice said that she was always smiling and hopeful that one day she'll overcome her addiction and get her life back in order.
One thing I remember about her was always her smile and always wanting to get out of, that life. I know that feeling.
Tragically, Janice's life would be brutally cut short before she even got the chance to do that. On Monday, April 18, 2022, the police in Baton Rouge received a report about a disturbing live video that was streaming on Facebook. The chilling video showed a deranged-looking man sitting in the front passenger seat of a car and rambling incoherently about his stuff being stolen. But what really caught people's attention was that seated next to him was a woman who could be heard panting heavily and begging him to stop. The woman's hands were tied with jumper cables, and she had red stains on her hair. As the man rambled on, he would hit the woman with a metal bar and jab her repeatedly with a knife. The video went on for an entire 15 minutes before someone reported it to Facebook, who then pulled it down and reported the matter to the police. An investigation was immediately launched as the police tried to figure out the location of the incident, hoping that it was all an act and that the woman would be found safe and sound. Sadly, that was not the case. As the police were trying to figure out where the video had come from, they received another call at around 4 p.m. from someone in the Sherwood Forest area, reporting that a woman's body had been found inside a car in an empty parking lot. The police immediately rushed to the scene, and what they found was truly horrific. A naked woman who was tied to the steering wheel of a partially burned BMW with a knife plunged into her neck. The woman turned out to be 34-year-old Janice David. According to the authorities, Janice had been beaten, choked, and jabbed multiple times before the car that she was in was set on fire. Some sources have said that she had over a dozen knife wounds to her head and several more to the rest of her body. An autopsy was conducted on her body, and they confirmed that her death was a homicide and that she had smoke inhalation. The police identified the killer as her 35-year-old boyfriend, Earl Lee Johnson Jr., who coincidentally was already in police custody for a completely different crime.
Stripped, bound, and unable to escape.
Please. Money guy.
Police say the woman in this video, which we've blurred, is Janice David. You can hear her begging for her life.
No money guy. I started that now.
He choked her, he beat her, and he stabbed her. And then from there, he tried to set the car on fire.
Earl Lee Johnson Jr. allegedly went on Facebook Live and took David's life in front of an audience inside of a car in Sherwood Forest, stabbing her roughly 50 to 70 times, according to a source who asked to remain anonymous.
Apparently, they were involved in some usage together for a couple of days, and as end result, as everyone has seen on Facebook Live, is very gruesome, very, very evil act.
After the gruesome killing, Earl reportedly took off and attempted to steal a car. However, the owner of the vehicle caught him in the act and called the police. When the police tried to stop him, he sped off, leading them on a high-speed car chase, but was eventually arrested at around 5:25 p.m. At this time, the police had no idea of the brutal crime that he had already committed, so they only charged him with theft of a motor vehicle and aggravated flight from an officer. When the police later discovered Janice's body, they immediately interviewed Earl, who confessed to the killing.
We launched our investigation, had a recording of the video. We already had him in custody. We interviewed him. He admitted to committing the killing.
He told the police that he was high at the time, having consumed 2 powerful narcotics, and that he tied Janice in the car using power cables and then attacked her with anything he could find. After this confession, Earl was arrested and charged with first-degree homicide, second-degree kidnapping, and obstruction of justice, among other charges. But why did he do it? What was his motive for killing Janice? In the live stream footage, Earl accused Janice of stealing money or narcotics from him, and you can actually hear Janice mumbling in agreement as he accuses her. However, given the situation that she was in, she probably did so that he would stop hurting her.
Man, so really tried to steal my shit, jump out the car with and be like, and try to make like I drank. Nobody not gonna do it like this.
After his arrest, investigators started digging into Earl's history, and what they found was really not that surprising. It turned out that Earl had quite a violent history and that, get this, he had actually been in prison for 15 years before he committed the murder.
The 9 News investigators have learned this is not Johnson's first run-in with the law. He was locked up back in 2005 on several armed robbery charges. He pleaded guilty to those charges in 2007 and was sentenced to 15 years behind bars. According to court records, his attorney at the time filed a request to reduce his sentence after he had served 4 years, but that was never approved. We're told Johnson did serve the full 15 years, meaning he was just released from prison back in January, roughly 90 days before police say he confessed to this heinous murder.
After getting out of prison, it seemed that Earl never really learned his lesson, as he went back to his old ways, robbing people and using narcotics. He would even brag about it on Facebook and Instagram, often going live and posting weird things, like on this one dated April 9th, 2022. But that's not even the most disturbing part. It turns out that before the gruesome murder, he had actually gone live on Facebook with a knife, threatening someone's life.
Say, look, real shit, cause I'm trying not to cut your motherfucking ass. Real shit, you done lay around that bitch, nigga, done did a whole night to you. You gonna lay around and take your ass out to the club tonight, and you tried this shit earlier. Real shit, you tried this shit earlier talking about some, you running out of data. Oh yeah, they probably is my phone gonna run out of data. I'm telling you, when I cut your ass, real shit, cause you talking about some fucking data, and you ain't got no data right now, you can't go on video, you doing everything else in the car.
Now, it's not clear when exactly the video was taken or who he was threatening, but what's really clear is that this guy was obviously unhinged. Whether this was caused by the many illegal substances he was taking, or he had some undiagnosed mental illness, has not been established. But tragically, Janice was the one that ended up paying the price for his delusions.
She just wanted somebody to just love her the way she loved, and she never found that.
Janice's family and friends were completely devastated when they learned of the awful way in which Janice had died, saying that she didn't deserve to die like that.
She was caught up in a world, I guess you could say that, you know, it was hard for her to get away from.
You must have gave up on her as a human being. Seeing her as a human being with a problem, you gave up and just felt that her life was nothing.
Janice's loved ones held a memorial service for her, remembering her as the loving and caring person that she was. They also demanded justice and asked that the attention be focused more on her than her killer.
You know, everything has been focused on the guy that murdered her, and she was a victim, and her life was taken tragically.
She's a human being, and her death was glorified, and that's awful.
The fact that Janice was killed by someone she trusted and was in a relationship with made her case a horrifying example of just how bad domestic violence cases can get. And not just for women, but for men as well.
I had a chance to look at the video, and was I prepared for that? I've been doing this for a long time, and no, I wasn't.
Priscilla Ray with the Iris Domestic Violence Center says domestic violence cases are becoming more brutal. It's unclear if Johnson had a history with drug abuse, but Ray says around 50 to 70% of their victims have abusers who deal with a drug or alcohol problem.
But I believe that, victims, that for them is an excuse to, excuse the behavior, which makes it, well, when he's not drinking or he's not on drugs, he's fine. You cannot predict what somebody is going to do when they're on drugs.
Ray says if you are in a similar situation and not ready to leave, you should have a safety plan.
If you have a friend or if you know somebody who you trust, you need to let them know what's going on.
Know your worth. Know you are worth more than this. I love you, Janice, and I will always remember the special friendship that we had.
Earl is currently being held without bond to await his trial. If found guilty, he would face any time between 30 years to life imprisonment. What do you think about this case? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section, and if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more.